What you are seeing is an elevator, specifically one from the 1910s. Now what are elevators? They are machines that move vertically to transport people and cargo to a desired location within a building. They are designed for comfort and easy transport from point A to point B. But it is here that comfort would not be taken into account for one instance, as it would lead to one of the most racially charged events in U.S. history. It would also be the catalyst for what would be known as the most mysterious outbreak to affect the populace. On the 30th of May, 1921, an African-American male shoe shiner, Dick Rowland, accidentally tripped while entering in an elevator. He caught himself by grabbing the arm of a white female elevator operator, Sarah Page. After a scream from her and fearing the worst, Rowland fled until being apprehended a day later. It was their encounter that would ignite a spark in the racially divided city of Tulsa. That spark would unfortunately result in substantial scarring in the African-American district, famously known as Black Wall Street. Over 800 would be injured, with an unknown number of deaths, ranging anywhere between 100 and 200. It was a travesty not seen as such by the U.S., as many attempts from city and government officials were made to suppress the severity of the act and blame African American residents for inciting the event in the first place, a national forgetting it was called by the white demographic. Days after the Tulsa massacre, a strange ailment would impact the white inhabitants of Tulsa. Called white blindness or ocular whiteout by modern science, as the names imply, affects one's vision. One sees the color white and nothing else. They describe it as looking at a blank white paper 24/7. A burning sensation of the iris, similar to looking directly at the sun, was another symptom of the disease. During the first 3 days, panic swept the entirety of Tulsa's white community. Naturally, blame was placed on African Americans as they weren't afflicted with the ailment. Talks of a second massacre were discussed prominently by Tulsa city officials. However, many Christian preachers and pastors would come in quickly to stand against such an act. Seeing the disease inflicting only one race and no other, they believed any violence towards African Americans would bring in more suffering and death. They saw it as the devil's work, punishing those for the punishing of others days prior. The words of the church resonated with many, and as a result, a number of white residents would travel to nearby towns and go up to the nearest African American to apologize, believing their sins would disappear completely. Some would even go as far as claim responsibility for participating in the Tulsa massacre. To all the white residents of Tulsa, it appeared that their apology crusade reached God. After 7 days since the first case, the white blindness outbreak had ended. While celebration was loud and open on the streets, many were confused on the abruptness of the outbreak's end. Days followed with no other cases being reported. Throughout the country, many medical professionals made plans to travel to Tulsa to further their understanding of the mysterious disease. However, through word of mouth, these travels were caught wind by Washington, D.C. Due to the recent end of the Spanish flu 1 year prior, the U.S. government enacted a comprehensive initiative to eradicate national knowledge of white blindness. Scientists and doctors were stopped in their tracks to stay home, or they would lose their licenses and degrees. States such as Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, and Kansas were tasked with burning any newspapers detailing an outbreak that occurred in Tulsa. White blindness victims themselves were visited by government personnel personally, one by one, to make sure that they wouldn't speak of white blindness ever again. Compliance was at 100% for all sides. It wouldn't be until 10 years later that scientists and doctors would travel the road again to finally reach Tulsa. As extensive research carried out, unfortunate developments were brought to life during the 10-year gap. Of the 130 cases, roughly 80% had died. Some was a result of natural causes, while most was a result of suicide. 50% of the surviving victims had left Oklahoma entirely. The other 50%, which was 13, remained living in Tulsa. To add to the limited number, as scientists and doctors began conducting their research, they found surprisingly consistent patterns, but it only brought more mystery into an already confusing study. As previously mentioned, ocular whiteout affects one's vision with a burning sensation, but what was found interesting was the 13 victims didn't have any health-related issues prior. No previous signs or symptoms to signify allergies, fevers, or infections to cause such a syndrome. Even after 10 years of initial exposure, no physical signs of distress or bodily harm was observed. It was then interviews were conducted with the 13 Tulsa victims in order to obtain further information on how they received ocular rhino in the first place. It was here that consistent patterns continued and took a turn no doctor or scientist couldn't see coming. Clay Highwood, the first victim of ocular whiteout, was the first to be interviewed. After much needed patience and full clarity of the mind, Highwood relayed the events that led to his condition. It was a calm and quiet night for his residence. Highwood's wife and 2 children were sleeping peacefully, while Highwood himself, struggling to rest, walked out of his bedroom for some air. While appreciating the outside, Highwood felt a strange presence around both of his hands, as well as feeling multiple waves of heat flashes throughout his body. As Highwood walked back inside, his heart sank for what he saw standing in a dark corner. As he described it, it was a lanky, dark-colored, 9-foot-tall figure. It wore a black fedora-like hat with a wide brim. It resembled a smiling, burnt corpse while wearing a tattered black suit. As he began to move back slowly, the figure opened its grinning mouth. Highwood's pupils enlarged as a blood-curdling scream emanated out. The figure then collapsed on the floor and erratically moved its body as if it were in extreme pain. As it was happening, Highwood experienced the same feelings in his hands and hot flashes from earlier. In a panic, Highwood ran back into his bedroom where his wife had awoken from the sudden shutting of the bedroom door. As Highwood was about to explain to his wife what he saw, she moved her body against the bed frame, which seared terror in her face. Highwood turned to the side to spot the same figure standing next to him. Immediately, the figure pounced on Highwood, pinning him to the floor with its slender legs. It lowered itself closer to Highwood's face and took off its hat. Underneath the hat, the top half of the figure's face was revealed to have 2 white circles covering where its eyes should be, which weren't present. The figure opened Highwood's eyelids and kept them open. It was there, a sun-like light, shot from the figure's face and straight into Highwood's eyes. At that point, the interview was paused for Highwood to gather his thoughts accordingly. From there, Highwood went on to say that after he was struck with the light, his entire family was shined as well, his wife and his 2 sons. And it was Highwood's interview that would be the most common element for the remaining 12 Tulsa victims. Every single interview after had described a tall, skinny, and a horrifying figure appear in their households, let out gut-wrenching sounds, and blind them permanently. When asked about the sounds, each of the 13 distinctly remembered them, even after 10 years. They said they were the exact screams heard from the day of the Tulsa massacre, and that each sound was particularly linked to each individual. During the interviews, it was revealed that the 13 individuals were directly involved in the massacre and responsible for attributing to the deaths of the hundreds of African Americans. Because of the nature of how the interviews played out, the scientific investigation conducted by the country's top scientists and doctors ultimately left Tulsa. In conclusion, they categorized ocular whiteout as an idiopathic disease, which is any disease with unknown origins. No definitive report was written on where it came from or how it spread from person to person. Whether by coincidence, accident, or done for a purpose, it was ocular whiteout that changed Tulsa forever. Perception on a national level had deemed Tulsa as a bad luck city. On a local level, things were striving to change for the better. Because of the dominant Christian atmosphere, any sinful acts onto others was considered punishable by death. Every citizen was required by law to behave nice and friendly to anyone they see every day. Only then, in their eyes, their souls wouldn't be ever tainted by the dark demon that plagued their households 10 years ago.